Little did I know that a simple lunchbox would become the catalyst for chaos and confusion in the heart of downtown Chicago. As I innocently prepared for my lunch break, Karen mistakes my lunchbox for a bomb, calls 911 ASAP. From the panic-stricken office evacuation to the relentless media scrutiny, the incident exposed the dark side of human behavior, leaving me questioning the sanity of it all. Here's how it all went down. It was just another day at the office in downtown Chicago. I had packed my favorite meal, a homemade sandwich, some chips, and a small apple pie. My lunchbox, a quirky, metallic, and somewhat bulky case, was a gift from my eccentric aunt. It had always been a conversation starter, but today, it would become the center of an unbelievable misunderstanding. As I headed towards the break room, I noticed Karen from accounting eyeing my lunchbox suspiciously. Karen was notorious in the office for her nosy and often annoying behavior. She had a knack for blowing things out of proportion, but I never imagined she would take it this far. "Hey, what's in the box?" Karen asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. "Just my lunch, Karen. The usual," I replied, trying to sound casual. "That looks like a bomb case!" she exclaimed, her eyes widening. I laughed it off. "Come on, Karen. It's just a sandwich and some pie. Want to see?" But Karen was already backing away, her phone in her hand. "I'm not taking any chances. That looks dangerous." Before I could say another word, Karen was shouting into her phone. "Help! There's someone with a bomb in the office. Yes, 911, hurry!" I stood there dumbfounded as Karen continued her hysterical rant. "He has a bomb!" she screamed, pointing at me. "That's my lunch!" I yelled back, completely bewildered. I opened the lunchbox to show her, but it was too late. The office was in a frenzy. People were evacuating, and within minutes, the police had arrived. The next few hours were a blur. I was questioned by the police, my lunchbox thoroughly inspected. It was clear to everyone but Karen that there was no bomb, just an innocent lunch. The officers apologized for the inconvenience, but the damage was done. My colleagues looked at me differently, and Karen, well, she just stood there, defiant and unapologetic. "I was just being cautious," she said, shrugging. "Better safe than sorry." I couldn't believe her stubbornness. The office was in disarray, and it was all because of a ridiculous assumption. I was frustrated, to say the least, but there was nothing I could do. Karen had caused a scene, and there was no undoing it. The aftermath was worse than I could have imagined. The story spread like wildfire, not just within the office but across social media. "Lunchbox bomb scare in downtown Chicago," the headlines read. People were mocking the situation, and Karen was at the center of it all, basking in the attention. The next day at work, Karen approached me with a smug look. "You should thank me," she said. "I made you famous." I was appalled. "Famous, Karen? You turned a simple lunch into a national joke. You caused panic and wasted the police's time." But Karen just laughed. "Oh, lighten up. It's not every day you get to be a part of something so exciting." I was disgusted by her attitude. Karen had turned my life upside down for a moment of thrill and attention. I realized then that some people thrive on chaos and drama, no matter the cost to others. As I walked away from Karen, her laughter echoing in the hallway, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and disbelief. How could someone be so oblivious to the chaos they caused? The rest of the day was a blur of awkward glances and hushed conversations. I could feel the weight of everyone's stares, their whispers painting me as some sort of office oddity. The following days were no better. Karen seemed to revel in the notoriety of the incident, recounting her version of events to anyone who would listen. She painted herself as a hero, a vigilant employee who acted in the best interest of everyone's safety. It was infuriating to hear her twist the story, leaving out the part where it was just a lunchbox. I tried to keep to myself, hoping the situation would die down, but Karen's relentless storytelling kept the incident fresh in everyone's minds. I found myself becoming the subject of office jokes. "Hey, don't bring any suspicious packages today," someone would quip as I walked by. It was humiliating. One day, I overheard Karen in the break room, dramatically retelling the story to a group of new interns. And then, when the police arrived, I was so brave. I told them exactly where to find the bomb, she boasted. "That's not how it happened, Karen," I interrupted, unable to contain my frustration. "It was a lunchbox, and you knew it." The room fell silent. Karen turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "I was just doing my duty. If you can't understand that, then maybe you're the one with the problem." I was taken aback by her audacity. "My problem? You caused an unnecessary panic and made me look like a criminal in front of the entire office." Karen shrugged, unfazed. "You should be more careful about what you bring to work. We have to be vigilant these days." I realized then that arguing with Karen was pointless. She was too stubborn and self-absorbed to see reason. I left the room feeling defeated and isolated. The incident had a lasting impact on my life at the office. I became more withdrawn, avoiding social interactions for fear of being the butt of another joke. Karen, on the other hand, seemed to thrive in the aftermath. She became more outspoken, often referencing the incident as if it were a badge of honor. The final straw came a few weeks later. I arrived at work to find a small crowd gathered around the notice board. Curious, I approached and saw a new office memo. It was a new policy indirectly referencing the incident, outlining strict guidelines on what was deemed appropriate to bring to work. The list included a ban on unusual or suspicious-looking containers. I felt a surge of anger and humiliation. This was Karen's doing. I was sure of it. She had turned a simple misunderstanding into a full-blown office policy. I felt targeted, ostracized for something so trivial and absurd. That day, I made a decision. I couldn't work in an environment where paranoia was encouraged and reason was overlooked. I handed in my resignation, much to the surprise of my colleagues. As I packed up my desk, Karen passed by, a smug smile on her face. "Leaving so soon? Can't handle a little joke?" I looked at her, my frustration boiling over. "This was no joke, Karen. You turned my life into a circus. Enjoy your little kingdom of chaos." I left the office that day, feeling a mix of relief and bitterness. Karen had won her petty battle, but at what cost? The office had lost a sense of camaraderie and trust, all because of one person's stubbornness and need for attention. As I walked out into the busy streets of Chicago, I realized that sometimes the only way to win against unreasonable people is to walk away. And as for my lunchbox, it was safely tucked away in my bag, a reminder of the absurdity of it all. Can't believe something as simple as a lunchbox caused all that chaos. Karen definitely needs to chill out. Have you ever had a misunderstanding blow way out of proportion? Share your stories below. As a single mother, I never expected that my daughter's father would resurface with such sinister intentions. Little did I know, his desperate plan to heal his grieving wife would threaten the safety and well-being of my own child. Here's how it all went down. I'm 33 years old. Female is going to preface this by saying that my daughter's father, 37 years old, whom I will refer to as Jeff, has never been my romantic partner. We had a one-night stand. I don't like people calling him my ex since it makes it seem like we had some kind of emotional attachment. He was never involved after I told him I was pregnant and actually wanted me to terminate the pregnancy. However, I decided to raise my child alone since I have enough money to support her without child support. During the entire pregnancy and the first 4 years, Jeff was not in the picture. On my mother's recommendation, I did send him pictures and invited him to special events, but he always replied that he had no interest in my daughter. 2 years ago, he reappeared and began demanding parental rights. When I didn't comply with his demands, he sued, but his request for parental rights was denied. He was given the option to pay child support, and then we could reconsider granting him actual rights, but he has refused. Despite having more money than me, he refuses to provide child support. I still offered to let him see my daughter in a casual manner, no child support needed, with the agreement anything legal, medical, or educational will not involve him. He pushed the boundaries, and we had a fallout. After that, we didn't hear from him for almost 6 weeks before he called to meet for Christmas. After much discussion, I agreed to bring my daughter over on the condition my daughter's godparents could come. Thus, we went over for Christmas dinner, and finding out Jeff is married and had never told his family he had a child. It was uncomfortable the whole time. I'm going to use fake names, but let's say my daughter's name is Katie. His wife kept calling my daughter Gabrielle. Not the actual name she used, but it was that different from my daughter's name. The wife was also very physical, trying to pick up my daughter or parent her. I would block her or tell her to please let me deal with my child. The whole time she pretty much ignored me, but Katie didn't seem nervous, so I decided to just bide my time. I hit my limit when my daughter said she needed the bathroom, and this stranger said, "Oh Gabby, do you need to use the potty? Let mommy change you." My daughter hasn't worn diapers in a while now, and she's more than capable of going to the bathroom alone. I immediately told her to stay away from my daughter and that we were leaving. The woman started wailing that I was kidnapping her baby girl and tried to lunge at me. Her in-laws got in the middle and held her, consoling her and saying that we weren't leaving and for her to calm down as if she was the victim. At that point, I just glared at Jeff and told him he better explain or I would be calling the police. He asked me to speak in private in another room and that I could just leave my daughter with his parents. There was no way that would ever happen. Katie's godparents took her with them despite the wife having a full meltdown. Jeff and I spoke outside and he explained that he and his wife recently lost a daughter. I'm not going to give specific details on that. All I'll say is it was sudden and nobody's fault. And, as I can only imagine, it had caused some psychological issues for his wife. Apparently, he had the brilliant idea that having Katie pass as their lost child would help his wife without telling me. And that's why he wanted visitations and parental rights. He pleaded for me to leave my daughter with him for a little bit. I asked him what his plan was when his wife heals. His response was disgusting. "Well, I'll just send Katie back with you, and it will be just like before." I told him he was insane if he thought I would let him use my daughter like that. What his wife needs is therapy with a professional, not feeding her delusions. And I would not let that woman within miles of my daughter. He told me I was being cruel and didn't know the pain of losing a child. I agreed with him, but reminded Jeff that my priority is not his family, it's my child. What he and his family do to work through their grief has nothing to do with us. I also told him to call his lawyer because I'm making sure he never has contact with my child. So that's what I'm bracing for. He's been blasting my phone since Christmas, but I can easily ignore him. My daughter and I are going on a small vacation. This isn't an update, just something I feel needs to be said. My daughter is set for life financially. She has a trust, and I make really good money in my position. If she was 18 right now, I could put her through college without a loan. She doesn't need child support for her quality of life. If I could get child support and never worry about her father trying something, I would be suing him in a heartbeat. But after talking to a lawyer and realizing the risk, I've made the decision that child support or a possible inheritance is not worth my child's safety. Safety always comes first. This story highlights the importance of prioritizing the safety and well-being of our children above all else. It serves as a reminder that while grief can be a powerful force, using a child as a means of therapy is not only unethical but also harmful. As parents, it is our responsibility to protect our children from any situation that may jeopardize their safety and to prioritize their emotional and physical well-being. This mother's unwavering commitment to her daughter's safety is commendable and serves as an inspiration to all parents facing difficult situations. Am I a jerk for breaking up with my fiancé for not bringing me lunch? This is the question that haunts me as I reflect on the events that led to the unraveling of our relationship. From forgotten meals to mysterious shopping trips, tensions rose, secrets were revealed, and trust was shattered. Here's how it all went down. I, 25-year-old female, and my fiancé Mark, 26-year-old male, have been together for 2 years. We met through mutual friends and went to the same high school, but we didn't start dating until years after we graduated. Currently, Mark is in the military and stationed in another state. Despite the long distance, we have managed to keep our relationship strong, and we make the most of the time he comes home for vacation, breaks, and holidays. We also have a dog named Willie, which we got together. However, Willie stays with me and only gets to see Mark when he's home. When Mark is home, he stays at my place and also spends time with his family while I'm at work. Since he flies home, he leaves his personal vehicle at the base and sometimes uses my car. He also picks me up for my lunch break and we eat together. He never misses a lunch day. Recently, Mark came home 5 days ago and I returned to work. Mark dropped me off so he could use my car for errands and to buy more food for Willie since we ran out during his morning feeding. At the end of my shift, when Mark picked me up, I asked him if he bought the big or small bag of Willie's food. He paused and mentioned that he forgot to buy the food. Keep in mind that I work a 10-hour shift, and I fed Willie the moment I woke up to get ready for work, which was 12 hours ago. I asked Mark what he had been doing while I was at work, and he simply said that he was out spending time with his brothers. I consider myself a very understanding and patient person, so although I was mad that Willie had gone so long without eating, I gave Mark the benefit of the doubt since he hadn't seen his family in months. I decided to let it go. A couple of days later, Mark mentioned that he was going Christmas shopping with his brothers and wouldn't be able to take me to lunch because they were going before their shifts. My brothers-in-law, who are 20 and 22, haven't saved up for their own cars, so they needed to use mine. On that day, we unexpectedly had a meeting that extended my lunch to a later time when Mark would be free. I called Mark and told him about my new lunch hour and asked if he could bring me a plate of food. Mark hesitated and said he had to go feed Willie first since it was time for his second feeding. I suggested feeding Willie after he dropped off some lunch for me, as my break was only for 1 hour, and I wouldn't have enough time to eat if he went back home first. Mark insisted on feeding Willie first because he didn't want to upset me like he did when he forgot to feed him a couple of days ago. I felt uneasy. I love Willie very much, but I told him that Willie wouldn't starve from not eating for 5 hours. Mark suggested that I just wait until the end of my shift to eat after work. I was surprised that Mark was hesitant to bring me food, especially since he was in my car and I hadn't eaten since last night because I'm not much of a breakfast person. I was hungry. What could be more important than buying a plate of food for your hungry partner? I got upset and asked Mark what was really going on because he had never missed a lunch date with me. Mark raised his voice and said I was overreacting, then hung up on me. I called him back, but he rejected all my calls. He texted me saying he was going home and we could talk after work because he was tired from shopping. For petty reasons, I had a bag of chips on my desk that I refused to eat, so he could hear my stomach growl when he picked me up later. I saw him pull up to the front of my office building, and I calmly got into the car. The moment we got home, I told him it's over and asked him to pack his things and leave. He called me a crybaby and jerk and said I would regret breaking up. Is he right? Am I just being excessive for ending the relationship? To answer some recurring questions, all gifts were bought and given to my mother-in-law since she loves to rap. and Mark is really bad at keeping gifts a secret. Even if extra gifts were being bought as a surprise, no gift would be okay to leave me with anxiety and overthinking for the remaining 6 hours of my shift. I also did not mention that I also had a feeling that he was probably out cheating since I wanted the actual thoughts and point of view of everyone who read through this. I wanted to see if everyone's gut feeling/intuition thought the same without my influence. I also mentioned the part of me being petty to not paint myself as the saint some people say I am assuming to be, and to show my raw emotion and irrational thinking coming from a place of hurt and anger. Now the update. Mark packed his stuff and left. The next morning, I noticed he left an old college jacket that belonged to his stepdad and meant a lot to him with a deep meaning behind it. I could have been petty and thrown it away, but I decided to text Mark and maybe even talk it out after a night of being away and letting things calm down. I texted Mark, "Hey, you left some clothes behind," and his response was, "Wow, already crawling back. Throw it away, I don't want that crap," without even knowing it was the jacket. I left him on read and decided to text his mother if I could stop by and drop off the said jacket. She said of course, and told me to come by and also pick up the gifts, assuming I wanted them back. I came over and was immediately greeted by his mother and stepdad, who hugged me and asked if I was okay and needed to talk. I immediately broke down. I explained the situation and basically told the same story as I told here. His mother was angry and decided to call Mark and ask for his side of the story, but did not mention that I was there to listen in on the call. Mark answered by saying that I called him at the time he was with his brothers, Nick and Devin, and told him that he couldn't leave them at the mall since he was the only one with transportation, and I immediately got upset with him for choosing his brothers over me. Out of frustration, I yelled, "That's not true!" I showed my mother-in-law the call history, which checked out at the time when both brothers were already clocked in for their shifts. My mother and father-in-law confirmed that those were indeed their shifts. One brother-in-law also shared a picture of himself and some co-workers around the same time I asked Mark to bring me lunch. Mark hung up the call. My in-laws texted Mark and sided with me. I thanked them for the memories and love and left my engagement ring with them. Mark has called me repeatedly and has sent text messages begging to talk. After an hour, I finally answered and told him to tell me the truth or this would be the final time we spoke. Mark admitted to seeing another woman, his ex to be exact. I hung up and haven't answered since. I know it says that all of this happened today, but it actually took place 2 days ago. I had typed it out and left it as a draft since I cried myself to sleep and have been trying to keep it together. Update on Willie. Willie stays at a doggy daycare while I'm at work. We both decided to leave Willie home while he was in town to save money. While the issue of not bringing lunch may seem trivial on its own, it appears to have been the tipping point in a relationship that was already strained. Trust, communication, and understanding are vital in any partnership, and it seems that these aspects were lacking in this particular situation. It is important to remember that relationships are complex, and it is ultimately up to the individuals involved to decide what is best for their own well-being and happiness. I never thought I'd be caught in such a twisted web of deceit and manipulation. As the caregiver for my friend and my own grandfather, I never imagined that my drug addict uncle would become a relentless leech, draining every penny he could from my vulnerable grandfather. The battles I've fought to protect him have pushed me to my limits, and now I face a dangerous game of financial abuse and desperate measures. Here's how it all went down. I'm extremely frustrated with my drug addict maternal uncle. I've mentioned him before. Until March 2022, my maternal grandfather, age 100 years, 10 months, lived with him in his apartment. Unfortunately, the living conditions were horrendous. The bed was infested with bed bugs, causing my grandfather to suffer from numerous bites. The bedspread was stained with blood. Additionally, my grandfather spent all day sitting in a dilapidated chair that caused rashes on his arms. He experienced significant weight loss, and his clothes no longer fit him properly. To make matters worse, my uncle neglected to pay the bills, resulting in the cable and Wi-Fi being shut off. Thankfully, I provided my grandfather with an Android phone and unlimited data, so he had something to occupy his time. The apartment itself was dirty, filled with fleas or gnats, and cluttered with unused boxes of food. In March 2022, I was able to move my grandfather out of that environment, despite my uncle's disapproval. We couldn't let the authorities see the living conditions. Initially, we thought my grandfather's health was deteriorating quickly, but it turned out that someone was spending all his money on drugs and denying him food. Once he was out of that environment, he started eating normally and gaining weight. He now lives in a better place and receives health care through the VA home health care program. A home health aide visits him 3 days a week for bathing and other tasks. We had to leave everything behind due to the bed bugs, so I spent my own money on clothes and furniture for him. My brother also bought him a TV and a set of shelves. However, there is one major problem. My uncle treats my grandfather's bank account like his own personal ATM. They both receive Social Security benefits, and my grandfather also receives a war pension and dividends from stocks. My uncle still has my grandfather's debit card linked to his Grubhub account and uses it to order food multiple times a day. Starting around 10-15 days into every month, my uncle asks for small amounts of money, $10, $11, $12, $20, multiple times a day through Cash App. In 1 month, he took a total of $789 from my grandfather. This month, he has already taken $609. He has done the same to everyone in our family, except for my father, who is not even related to him. Everyone has reached their breaking point and now refuses his requests. My grandfather may not be as mentally sharp as someone much younger, but he does not have dementia or any severe mental issues. He recognizes everyone, engages in conversations, knows his surroundings, takes his medication independently, reads magazines and letters, comprehends what he reads, browses the internet, and answers calls. However, due to limited function in his right hand, he is unable to write. He uses a walker to move around his bedroom and the bathroom without any issues. He is not mentally incompetent. He simply has difficulty saying no. But the only reason he has so much money to give is because he's living with me. I'm a live-in caregiver for a friend with a spinal cord injury. My friend is the homeowner, and I'm paid by the state for caring for him. Also have a full-time office job, and pay the majority of living expenses for all three of us. He let my grandfather move in because he wanted me to stay living with him and caring for him rather than move out. For over a year, I stuck to my plan of not charging my grandfather anything, but my uncle just took it all. A few months ago, I started, with my grandfather's consent, letting him pay the phone bill I'd been paying for both of us for 3.5 years, and the water bill since I refused to subsidize my uncle's drug habit by paying all my grandfather's utilities, so he has more to give my uncle. Since Cash App is too complex for my grandfather, I'm the one who has to send the money to my uncle. I blocked my uncle on my phone, so he only gets money if he calls my grandfather while I'm home, and near enough for him to tell me to send the money. Barely made a dent in the demands. My grandfather is still getting free housing, internet, electricity, and gas, all so my uncle can take everything from him. My grandfather wouldn't have been able to get groceries with his own money the last week of December if he hadn't gotten some gift cards for Christmas. It makes me sick. I could stop it all by just reporting his debit card as lost and getting him a new one and refusing to send any more money in Cash App. But my grandfather doesn't want that. He wants to say yes every time. The only legal option I can think is to take more money from him to cover some of the monthly household bills, so he has less to choose to send to the man who almost killed him, and less of my money is funding, said man. If I just refuse my grandfather's instructions to send his money somewhere, he'll get mad, but I can now live with that. That prospect has finally become less unbearable than dealing with my uncle is. But what if my uncle reports me for financial abuse or elder abuse or something? He'll do anything to get money from his dad. He even lied to me when I first moved him out that my grandfather still owes him half the rent every month because his name was on the lease. It wasn't. It never was confirmed with the building management. I wonder if I can report my uncle for financial abuse when all he's doing is asking and being told yes. Asking someone to do a welfare check on my uncle that could result in him getting evicted or arrested would likely only make things worse for my grandfather, since he would no doubt just use that as an excuse to ask for more. I need a way to refuse instructions regarding money from someone with most of his mental faculties intact without giving an outside party grounds for accusing me of something malicious. Unless me not wanting to indirectly fund my uncle by funding my grandfather counts as malicious. I've decided to call his VA social worker, explain what's going on, and ask if they can recommend a lawyer or advocate or someone to advise us on things like making me power of attorney, or sending my uncle an ultimatum-style letter. Sometimes a warning is enough to scare people off their behavior, especially when they have things to hide. I might wait until after I make some spreadsheets of all the money my uncle has taken from him and all the expenses I've paid for him. That will take a while, but I think it would be preferable to have ready from the start. I saved the pictures of his living conditions that I moved him out of. To those concerned about my uncle visiting, we live in the same metropolitan area, but he lost his car years ago and he's severely damaged his health. In some of his angrier moments, my grandfather has actually described how the medication my uncle takes causes him to walk aimlessly, how my grandfather would call his name and he wouldn't respond, and how he'd stand in a doorway staring into space. When my uncle fell in October 2021 and had to go to the hospital, my grandfather actually told me it was because he took something that made him faint while standing up. I remind my grandfather of these incidents, but he now claims he doesn't remember any of that or telling me about it. However, I believe he's lying because he doesn't want to discuss it, not because he has forgotten. I apologize for the lengthy explanation, but it demonstrates how my uncle's mobility is severely limited. As far as I know, he only walks to the grocery store and the food bank. he appears emaciated and frail. I don't understand how he's still alive. My grandfather has expressed twice that he believes my uncle will die before he does, and I share the same concern. To sum up, he is physically incapable of taking a bus or an Uber and coming to our location. The dilemma of balancing the grandfather's autonomy with the need to protect him from exploitation is a difficult one. Seeking professional advice and support, such as contacting the VA social worker and exploring legal options, can provide guidance and potential solutions in navigating these complex situations. My life was shattered when my so-called best friend betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. From the lies and manipulation to the heart-wrenching revelations, I never saw it coming. But as the dust settles and the truth emerges, I can finally share my harrowing tale. Here's how it all went down. I know I should be careful calling someone best friend in a post like this, but I don't know how else to refer to Jessie. Our parents are great friends, so we grew up together, and she kind of had my back in high school. Long story short, in terms of popularity, she was at the top of the social hierarchy, and I was at the bottom. But nobody dared to mess with me because I was Jessie's friend. Jessie is someone who craves attention. I never minded though, because nobody is perfect, right? But now that I have my first real boyfriend, she doesn't seem to know how to behave. Every time we are together, she is overly touchy. She constantly touches his arms, runs her fingers through his hair, and compliments him. She has even started with playful spankings on the butt, which makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. Maybe this behavior is normal, considering that Jessie has a lot of male friends. Could I be overreacting? Perhaps I'm just feeling jealous because she's attractive. Anyway, something happened yesterday that really upset me. My boyfriend had work to do, and I had a hobby-related event to attend. We had planned to meet later at a friend's house, where everyone was getting together to have drinks, etc. My boyfriend finished work early and called me, but I didn't really need him to come to the hobby event, since I know he doesn't enjoy it. So I just told him to go to our friend's house. Then I started receiving texts from Jessie saying things like, "Girl, you have to come to this party now. Your boyfriend is wasted. LOL. LOL, we're so drunk you need to come and stop us. I can't control myself if you don't get here soon." And so on. The hobby event took longer than I anticipated and I was getting increasingly angry. However, I am a very non-confrontational person, so I tried to deal with it. Once the event was over, I called my boyfriend because I didn't feel like going to the party anymore. However, I was his ride, so I asked him if he needed me to come pick him up. He said, "Sure." When I arrived, I didn't even go inside. I was ready to confront him angrily, but when he got in my car, he was completely sober. I asked him if he had been drinking and then showed him Jessie's texts. He became really upset and said she was lying. He wasn't even hanging out with her. Instead, he was catching up with a friend who had just returned to town. He told me that I should have texted him to let him know about what she was saying, so he could confront her about it. He said, "You never seem to be able to set boundaries with that girl." Now, I am contemplating whether I should talk to Jessie about this situation. Maybe she was just drunk and annoying me because she wanted me to be at the party. I don't know. I mean, this girl was really kind to me while growing up when she could have been mean. I don't appreciate how she behaves around my boyfriend, but at the same time, I don't want it to seem like I don't trust her. Is there a polite way to address this with her, or should I wait and see if this happens again? Am I overreacting? Last night we were alone because she wanted me to help her choose clothes for an event. I was at her place, so I thought I should say something. I wanted to say something. I was very polite and just said that I knew she meant no harm, but I didn't feel good about it. So I asked her if she could tone it down. I should have said stop, but I guess I'm weak. She didn't really say anything mean, but her attitude was a bit off, I think. She was looking at me in a scornful kind of way, and the way she smiled once I was done talking, it just felt weird. She didn't say anything else but okay, and we just moved on to choosing her clothes, and I left after. We were supposed to go get something to eat, but she said she was tired. I am not dumb. She was hurt. So I texted a common friend, more her friend than mine, and without getting into details, I just told him that I talked to Jessie about something that was important to me, but I was afraid she may have gotten the wrong idea from it. The common friend said, "Look, I don't want to get involved, but you should watch it." I asked what he meant. He said, "Nothing, just watch it." A little while after that, he texts me back and says, "Changed my mind. I do want to get involved," and sends me a bunch of prints of texts going back and forth between him and Jessie. It basically starts with him asking her if the two of us had a fight because I was worried. He was kind with his words. I don't mind him stepping in. And then just a non-stop stream of her being horrible. She says I had a big mouth and was judging her behavior because I'm prudish and don't know how to be around guys. How she taught me everything I know about having a life, and how dare I tell her what she can or cannot do, or how I should thank her for even having a boyfriend at all. The common friend actually called her out for being rude and no friend of mine. After the prince, he told me, "I'm done with her, I give up, and you should watch it." He also said it was okay if I told her I had the prince. I didn't though. I didn't know what to say. I mean, she's not 100% wrong. But even though I know that, it really hurts to read those. This morning I wake up and see she texted me late at night. She says she knows Pete sent me the prince and she didn't mean to be rude, but it's ridiculous that I'm jealous of her because if she wanted my boyfriend, she could just have him. You want me to prove it? So I'm being silly and should drop it, is what she meant. She ends it with kisses and a joke. So I don't know if she was being playful, apologizing, threatening, or being pragmatical. I didn't answer her yet. I don't know what to say. Should I even say something, or should I just let it go? I wish I could talk to someone about this, but I am very private. I usually go to Jessie with these things. Help? My boyfriend is having sex with her. A friend convinced some other friends to send me prints of texts between themselves and either my boyfriend or best friend. They are pretty clear. I confronted my boyfriend. He looked lost, said he loves me and it was just sex. He says Jessie kept throwing herself at him, teasing him, and he said he didn't like her, but I still wanted to hang. He said he just had sex with her to see if she would move on and leave him alone, and that it only happened a couple of times. Says he won't do it anymore, he doesn't even like her. He loves me, asking me to please forgive him. From the texts, once I finally made it through them all, I think that Jessie went to the party, where me and my boyfriend met, because she wanted to hook up with him. She had feelings for him, but he didn't feel the same way. She was trying to get him to break up with me, and then to get me to break up with him. It worked. As of yesterday, he is a single man. In some of those texts, they are talking about some of the hookups. I feel like throwing up. I blocked him because he was still trying to get in touch. I ghosted her, but she just sent me a message saying she just heard what happened and, you know, this was probably for the best, right? And I feel like freaking screaming. I don't know if this is an update or just me venting. Thanks for listening either way. I don't want to sound melodramatic or sappy or anything, but you all brought me to tears. We keep hearing about how it is insanity to rely on the internet for personal connections, but I just lost a boyfriend, a best friend, and a whole group of friends. And instead of feeling alone, I am more and more feeling like, heck yeah, that was the right thing to do. I will be okay. It still hurts, but not as much as it would have had I really been alone. I can't even begin to thank this subreddit. I really don't know what to say. Even on my previous posts that didn't get as many responses, it was some of the comments there that made me approach the cheating thing knowing I had to break up and move on. So it changed my life in this moment. And considering I will be doing a lot of soul searching on toxic relationships, this probably changed my life for good. So thank you all so much for reaching out to a stranger. This community is so precious. And I got a gold. I don't even know what to say. Thank you so much. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but I don't even know how much a gold costs. And this is an alternate account, so it won't really be used. Is there any way I can return it to the sender? Ex-boyfriend kept trying to get in touch through common friends. They kept asking me to unblock him and at least hear him out because he was really sorry. He loved me. He was a mess. He didn't mean to. Someone even went as far as to ask me if I was really sure it happened. They offered to send me prints of texts where he was talking about me, so I'd see how he always had great things to say and how much he cared. But I've had it with the print screen drama for life and said no. To the ones who insisted, I told them I wasn't unblocking him, had nothing to say or hear, and if they kept pushing me, I'd block them too. I ran into my ex-boyfriend at this book event I go to often, a hobby of mine. Maybe I'm being presumptuous, but I think he went there for me. He didn't really have any business there, but I'm just speculating really. He asked if I had a few minutes for coffee. I said I was late. Lie. He walked me to my car. He looked so good, smelled great, he was so sweet. He was even wearing his hair the way I like it. I feel horrible because even after everything, I still like him. He apologized some more, said he knew I needed time and space, but asked if I'd consider giving him another chance because he would wait for me. He said he would never talk to Jessie again, and they would act like they had restraining orders against each other. And I just found it really funny how everything he was saying required me trusting him, which I don't. So I told him I wasn't interested anymore and he should move on. I wish I said something snappier or wittier, but I had nothing. This was Saturday. I haven't heard from him or friends since. I think that was that. Jessie also kept trying to talk to me. Like I told some of you in the comments, I had a trip coming up. It would have been me, Jessie, my ex-boyfriend, and a few friends. Since Jessie couldn't afford it, my parents paid for most of her expenses. She must have remembered this right after everything went down and panicked because I had everything. Vouchers, confirmation emails, credit card info. She went crazy, even showed up at my place. I wasn't home, and my roommate told her to leave. Exact words. I didn't block her at first because I admit I was having some fun watching her despair. I talked to my mom, and she was amazing. She told me I should cancel everything even if it cost us money. It was fine. So I did. And for one last bit of print screen drama, I printed all the emails I got confirming cancellations and sent those to Jessie with the word bye before blocking her. My roommate has been amazing. We were never really close, and now I don't even know why. She canceled plans with her friends to stay with me and invited me to go out with them next weekend. A few of you suggested I see a therapist, and I did yesterday. I really liked it. It was just one appointment, and I mostly just talked, but it felt good. She gave me homework. She talked a little about unhealthy and abusive relationships, and asked me to think about my friendship with Jesse, and try to identify what was healthy and what was unhealthy about it. It made me realize she was never really my friend. She was taking advantage of me for years, and she even had me thanking her for it. The therapist also told me about this saying, I think that's what it is, called the narcissist's prayer, which goes something like, that didn't happen. If it did, it wasn't my fault. If it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, then you deserved it. This is exactly how Jesse is handling this whole thing now. So, good riddance indeed. And here's a final piece of gossip. Pete talked to me yesterday. He checks up on me sometimes. He's a good guy. Again, he is gay, in case someone is still thinking this might turn into a romantic comedy. He said Jesse was super sure that since I broke things off, she and Dean would hook up right away. But apparently, he doesn't have the same plans. And that freaked her out over the weekend. Pete says he's really a mess and went out drinking hard 4 nights in a row to the point where his pals had to carry him home. And yesterday, they all went out for lunch at this burger place, and Jessie was going to run her fingers through his hair or something, and he just pushed her away and told her to stop and to never touch him again. Great that asterisk now asterisk he manages to do that, huh? I guess in the end, he really did like me in his sick way. The thing is, I don't want to be with someone who likes me in a sick way. I want to be with someone who likes me in a healthy way. I think I deserve that. I am also thinking about using the money I got back from the trip to go somewhere else by myself. I haven't decided yet. Anyway, this will be the final update on this, as it is unlikely that I will have anything new to add. Now, I think I just need time to heal and let go, you know? It sounds like you've been through an incredibly challenging and emotional situation. Betrayal from a close friend and a partner is deeply hurtful, and it's understandable that you're feeling a mix of emotions right now. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now, or you're definitely the jerk.